I'm taking such good care of my little white boys.
I assume you planned this?
Not this part.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Backlot Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel. Today I'm joined by my little bite boy that I take good care of, Tanner Dykstra, and today we're here to talk about Challengers, the latest and greatest from Luca Guadagnino with Josh O'Connor, Mike Faist, and Zendaya. Tanner, we've been looking forward to this movie, but also many other people have, and if they've seen it, they being you, the audience, join our Discord, talk to us about it there, leave comments, subscribe, like the video. Tanner, jump right in. Challengers.
So, Tucker, I've been extremely hyped for the film Challengers ever since I saw the first trailer for this that came out.
It's a good time to start.
Yeah, last year, basically. And it did not disappoint.
Sure.
I fucking love Challengers. It's a slamming good time from start to finish.
Hey, there's a title.
Exactly.
There's a YouTube video title.
Maybe it is. Only you know, really. So ultimately, Tucker, what it comes down to is our really, really strong trio of our cast here. These really good, really talented up and coming stars.
Yeah.
And then an equally and a growing and evolving talent like Luca Guadagnino behind the camera here, who is doing something quite different than he's ever done in any of his films before. This is much more frenetic, much more frenzied than any of his past films, which often can take on a reserved sort of quality, even if they are, sort of tackling subject material like his Suspiria remake, for example. But this one is really electric for 2 hours and 10 minutes, which is sort of an uncommon runtime for what is effectively an erotic sports thriller.
Yeah, it's really interesting that this movie doesn't feel like anything else. If anything, you could compare it to more erotic romance-based drama thrillers from the 90s, but it's certainly not something we get very much of anymore, and not to this level of polish and theatrical release. This is an amazing movie.
Yeah.
And I was really, really blown away because I agree with you about the performances. The trio of characters, I think it's the trio of performances and the writing that goes into the three of them
screenplay
that combines to just make one of the most gripping three-way narratives and relationships that I've ever seen, in that each one of them feels like they're the bad guy from the other people's point of view. And then you never really know where the story is going to land or which direction it's going to take in terms of each scene, I think, kind of takes a side of a character and frames it in a certain way, but it's jumping between those perspectives. And I think that's really, really compelling. And each of those core actors, I think, are giving the best performances that they've ever given. And I think it'll be a crying goddamn shame if this movie gets underlooked, especially in the performance categories by the end of the year. But I don't think it won't, because they're just that good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's hoping, Tucker. Here's hoping. So, Tucker, let's talk about the characters, since that's where we kind of left off. We have our three. We have Zendaya as Tashi Duncan.
Yes.
We have Mike Faist as Art Donaldson.
Yes.
And we have Josh O'Connor as Patrick Zweig.
Yes.
Okay.
Good job.
And thank you.
Yeah.
And so eventually, as this isn't a spoiler or anything, we know this from the trailer. Eventually, Mike Faist and Zendaya, they end up getting married and become a sort of tennis power couple following Tashi getting injured during one of her tennis matches.
And Patrick just kind of goes by the wayside.
Exactly. So what we have here is all of our characters are obsessed with tennis, and tennis obviously being a metaphor for relationships, as noted in this film a number of times. This film makes no subtle jabs about what it's saying or what its themes are.
No, but I actually think that that's actually really confident.
I think so too.
It comes across to me as confidence in understanding the focus of this would be a very focused movie. The ways that the relationship aspects, the tennis aspects, and I would say even the filmmaking and structural aspects are all honed to one tight point. That is, we're not hiding that this is all leading towards one thing.
It doesn't feel as though we are it is Luca or Justin Curtis, I believe is how you pronounce the writer's name. Saying, "Oh, hey, audience, here's what the movie's about." It feels more like clarity and being here's the pieces that we're playing with. Follow along. We're gonna have a good time.
But it's also
with
not
this.
vague at all, and I think that's what makes it so electric and engaging. Is everything is out on screen
Yeah.
at the same time. I think what keeps the runtime, I would say the slightly too long runtime, but the runtime engaging for as long as it is that you don't know where it's going next, but you're always focused in on the relationships, on the dynamic, on the progress going forward. Because I think one of the most bold creative choices of this film is its structure.
Of course.
Is it starts in medias res, backwards, forwards.
Yeah,
and one thing that I noted
Okay.
is that it's kind of like a tennis match. You're ping pong from the future to the past, the future to the past, the future to the past, back and forth. And I think that back and forth nature is very unique. You almost never see that in terms of structures.
I mean, yeah, and then it's even more clear in that sense from its structure resembling a tennis match, because everything in this movie is about tennis, because we're always talking about tennis. Or is that really what we're talking about? In that it's the 3-act structure is also structured around the frame narrative of this final match, or this penultimate match, I guess, ultimate match, not penultimate.
Yeah, it's the final match.
Between Art and Patrick.
Yeah.
What that sort of spans the entirety of the film. There's set 1, set 2, set 3, match point for like the final act of the final minutes
Sequence
of the film.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all of our characters are obsessed with tennis to one degree or another. Zendaya's Tashi Duncan is a very skilled player who is very assured in herself and her skills and her thoughts on herself as a tennis player. And there's lots of conversations about, especially when we're in, sort of I think it's around 2003 is when the earlier sequences are set.
I believe the most modern part of the movie is in 2019.
Yeah.
And then they flash back to 16 years earlier.
Okay.
When they first meet is 2003. Yeah. And then a good chunk of it is, I think, 3 years after that, so 2006. And then there's I think 2 years before the most modern point, so 2016, 2017.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway. So
I'm just trying to see how well I remember challenges.
Exactly.
Which is pretty well.
Yeah. So then you have our characters basically entering college.
Yeah.
And there's conversations about, is all you can do hit a ball with a racket?
Yeah.
And Patrick's Vibe, Josh O'Connor's character is very set on, that's all I can do. That's all I'm good for. That's what's super important in my life. Mm-hmm. And his life suffers for that. Or, does his life suffer for not being sort of carried on the chariot of celebrity that is Tashi Duncan.
Yeah.
Like, basically, Art comes along for that ride instead of Patrick.
Yeah. And that dynamic, primarily the Art and Patrick dynamic, is what fuels this movie, because it's the two of them going back and forth between will they, won't they, who is more in love with Tashi, who has Tashi's favor at this moment, and that dynamic back and forth is what drills you into the movie. But it's always Tashi at the top, and I think the marketing decision to focus it all around Zendaya, it was very, very smart.
Yeah,
because,
her game, her rules. Yeah.
Because and the poster is her, and the key art is just her face.
Yeah.
It's always about Tashi's manipulation. That is really what this movie is about, is the way in which she controls the two of their lives and makes them do what she wants. And she's a very compelling character in that way, in that I wouldn't consider her a likable character. I think that you can see her charm and the reason why someone would want to follow her or find her attractive, that sort of thing, especially at the beginning of the film. But the bulk of the runtime of this film is you come into terms with, she has very clear goals and she's not really afraid to do whatever she needs to get what she wants.
I think so, and I think it's more complex than she is the villain of the film.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Of course,
because also what I said earlier, I think makes this film so distinct and engaging is that at each point in the film, one of the three of them is trying to break up the other two.
It's always about being subversive or trying to get what you specifically
and so the
want.
first part of the film is Tashi separating Patrick and Art because they were basically brothers. They grew up together. They're doing tennis doubles, and she gets her way into their relationship and wedges them apart. And then
well, here's my thing with that, though.
Yeah.
Does she wedge them apart purposefully? I don't think she does. It's really...
I think she has to be. Because, basically every time she's interacting with them, she's putting a little bit of a nugget in their mind of, it's going to be one or the other. And she's doing that very purposefully. She's like, one of you can have my number, or both of you going to get that.
Here's my thing with that, though, is that, like, that's just her being reasonable. She's not going to have 2 boyfriends.
No, true, but I think she also knows the impact that she has, because she's very clear about, I don't want to be a homewrecker, but then 3 seconds later does something that contributes directly and intentionally to separating the two of them and creating strife.
But what I really focus in on is Art forming this, like, I want to break them.
Art's sake.
Art for art's sake, exactly.
MGM.
Oh my God! It's all coming together.
Oh.
It's really his actions at Stanford that kind of result in Tashi and Patrick breaking up. Because as we learn, we don't see this match, but Patrick wins that match to get her phone number.
Yeah.
And this obviously irks.
And we actually almost don't see any of Patrick and Tashi's relationship.
Of course.
Because we skip over that. They are...
Well, they're kind of estranged. They're dating, but also not really dating. Yeah. They're both sort of volatile people, because I think they are much more closely aligned in personality than Art and Tashi
I agree with
are.
that. Yeah. And I think that the truth of the dynamic between the three of them comes in the moment when she injures her knee, and Art is the one there, and Pat had just recently had an argument with Tashi, and so then he wasn't there.
He chooses not to go to the match.
I think that's the moment in which the not decision was made, but the dominoes were tipped in Art's favor in terms of their relationship. Because I think that if Patrick had been there and had their relationship going up to that point, and Patrick had been the first one to run down and had gone to the nurse's room with her, they would have gotten married. Yeah,
but here's my thing, though, because I think it's a very clear setting up of personalities and what each character needs and what roles each character fulfills for them. Is that, and Patrick says this of Art. He says Art's the kind of guy that will let you walk all over him.
Definitely.
He will let you control his life, make him the Grand Slam champion, because that's he just wants to be in love with you, and he will do anything to make sure there's no bumps in that plan. Whereas Patrick, I think, is much more individualistic.
Sure.
He is, he actually has a full-on argument with Tashi. We never see Art really do that.
I think actually he isn't until he's having an argument with Tashi, because I think that he is just as willing to be like, oh no, we're still in the relationship. I like doing anything to get her favor. We don't see a lot of that, but I think you can read that into what their dynamic was. The fact that they're long distance dating, the fact that he shows up and wants to spend time with her, and then I think it's the fact that he loses the battle between winning Tashi that catalyzes him to become much more individualistic.
See, I think it's a point of difference that if Art was dating Tashi, they would never be in a long distance relationship. He would be. Sure. He goes to Stanford, and she goes to Stanford. He is effectively setting himself up to be near her at all times.
Sure,
and Patrick's just not doing that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I mean, what that all was basically just like there's a lot of character meat to dig into here.
That's the movie.
It's all the movie. It all really works.
And it's that dynamic that really locks me into this being one of my favorite movies of this year so far. And I think personally, for me, the best work that Luca Guadagnino has done is that I was a little bit hesitant going into this because I didn't really know what the structure was going to be. I didn't really know where the balance would lead in terms of the dynamic between the three characters, and I think in the best compliment I can give this movie, it's really, really well balanced between the three perspectives. I think Patrick gets a little bit shafted in terms of screen time, but it makes sense in terms of where the story leads. And I felt myself, as I learned each element of their relationship and watched each argument and each choice and then each time skip back and forth, and which I think are very perfectly timed in terms of finishing off a sequence and then leading into something else where the previous sequence gives you just a little bit more context, getting more and more engaged and interested in the dynamic and being like, oh, he knows this in that scene, which I didn't know before, and that's why this is so tense. That's why you're getting these close-ups.
It kind of almost lulls you into thinking like, oh, is this going to be told in reverse order? But then it really jumbles it around as we get into the second and third acts. But it all really works because it's less about the time scale and more about what we know and what these characters have experienced and when that happens.
Yeah.
Tucker, I wanted to talk about we call this film a little bit erotic,
Sure.
a sexual thriller of kinds, and I find it
Of
really
many
interesting.
kinds.
Of many kinds.
That's the point of the movie, in my
That's
opinion.
true.
Yeah.
I mean, because obviously from the trailer, you can sort of sense that there is a heavy bisexual tone to this. I mean, we get it in no uncertain terms. I mean, Patrick, we see him on Tinder a number of times. He is swiping right on men and women, and there's even. As I'm sure you've heard if you're watching this review, if you're tuned into Challengers, a scene in which Patrick and Art kiss.
Yeah.
So
For a while. This is not. This can be cut out for the Arabian censors.
This is not a peck. This is intrinsic to the entire crux of the film. Their whole conflict is it's sexually charged as well as like charismatically charged. I would say, or like they're trying to win tennis and win Tashi and all of this stuff.
And I think that's another element. The love triangle being ultimately kind of between the three of them. In terms of you can see realities in which each of these relationships went the way of they were the ones that spent the rest of their lives together, even to the point of Art and Patrick having such good chemistry together and having from the few moments that we see a budding sexual relationship between the two of them that is then cut off because Tashi gets in the middle and then separates them. But there's some really good moments of sexual tension and chemistry between the two of them.
Absolutely.
And that is, I can't remember the last time I saw a movie where the three-way love triangle was between all of them.
Exactly.
And it was two guys and a girl. I don't think I've ever seen that in my life.
That's really interesting. Where the term love triangle is thrown around a lot, but it's mostly like two people pursuing the same person.
Yes.
And
which is a love V.
Which is a love V if you really think about it. But this is truly a love triangle where there are three different couples that could be made. Tucker. Anyway, what was I going to go with? That? It's obviously far different in tone than things of what Tucker had sort of invoked earlier, like your 90s erotic thrillers. Not only because of the sexual relationships involved, but also in the way it displays them. I mean, there's some titillation, I would say.
Yeah.
But and this is very much in line and perhaps a different conversation entirely, based on what has been observed with, the younger generation, younger movie-going generation's ideals towards sex in films. So I'm very interested to see where that goes. But from my perspective, it's much more about, like, casting three incredibly attractive people, and then just making them sweaty and posing them in slow motion and getting their muscles and everything on display, than it is about, like, showing our characters having sex.
No, because there are sexual encounters that happen sparingly throughout the film. I'd say there's probably maybe 4 or 5. I think there's only like 1 or 2 where the camera lingers and that becomes something that's very much a focal point of the scene. But I think they're always done tastefully. I don't think this is erotic to make you be like, oh, scandalous. I can't believe I'm seeing that on screen. It's more of the sexual tension between the three of them creates scenarios in which their emotions are heightened, and then because in all sorts of different scenarios, those sexual relationships don't pan out to help. They never help all three of them, and so then someone's always envious of the other person. There's always the memory of, oh, remember when that happened, and this person doesn't remember that or doesn't know that yet. That creates, from the audience's point of view, because we are able to get all three of their perspectives, a much more engaging flow of the movie to be like, oh, they did this, and he's mad about that, and she's upset about this, and it's just, I think, a really good use of what sex is in terms of a driving emotional force in a film, of heightening the stakes of a dynamic, because that is when two people are at their most invested in each other.
I mean, in this film, like we said, is of on no certain terms about what the sex is standing in for. Like, I saw someone...
I think it's much more that the tennis is a stand-in for sex, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're. I think it's both.
Well, sure, yeah.
Is that
I think the tennis is incidental, almost.
I mean, tennis is just ultimately sex and tennis are just a way for our characters to sort of like emotionally let themselves out.
And Patrick Zweig, God love him, even says, "I'd let Tashi fuck me with a tennis racket."
Yeah,
so
yeah.
in that moment, it all comes full circle.
Of course. I mean, it's just about sort of cleansing all the built up tension, whether that be on the tennis court or in a bed of all sorts. And where I was going with that was something very astute. I mean, basically all I was saying is that it's much more about like I think Luca Guadagnino is very purposeful in the way that he sort of just uses our characters as like action figures basically to like pose them. He's really modeling them for us.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of that comes through in his direction of those tennis sequences where the sex scenes are almost like foreplay to get to the real cinematic payoff that is the tennis matches.
Yeah, and
I mean, especially when you talk about perhaps one of the most electrifying third acts or 3B acts that I've seen put to screen, which is that final tennis match that we were talking about.
Yeah, and I was just about to get into that. I think that also maybe the entire movie is foreplay leading up to that specific moment. Because I think the tennis matches in the first two-thirds of the movie are good. I think it's totally engaging. But I think what's very interesting and kind of perplexing, but also equal parts perplexing and exciting about Challengers is that there is a pretty significant break for that third act conflict where the editing and cinematography flip on their head, and suddenly Luca Guadagnino is doing things with editing and cinematography that no man from MGM has ever done in the history of that company.
It is truly baffling, but in a good way.
Yeah.
To see what Luca is doing here, especially if you've seen some of his previous work, which
and I think it's going to turn some people away from the movie.
You think so?
Because I think there's so much weird shit that was not in the most part of the movie that is in the last part. And I'm not saying I didn't like it, but that it's like, what the hell is happening?
No,
sometimes I think it can be a little bit confusing.
Well, yeah, I mean, the sequences that we're talking about. I mean, Luca completely shifts gears to be doing like first person between Art and Patrick, and then putting you in the perspective of the tennis ball. Yeah, and then we're doing sequences.
We get a split triopter shot.
A split triopter, that's crazy. And then like. We turn like effectively the tennis court into glass, and we're looking straight up through
Alfred Hitchcock, eat your fucking dead heart out.
I also want to point out, thank you for reminding me,
the Lodger,
that there is the Lodger, but also another Hitchcock reference is there's a number of sequences, and this makes sense for the kind of movie it is, where we looked at the crowd and they're sort of following the tennis ball, and then you use that in sort of referencing one of my favorite shots in all of cinema. From Strangers on a Train, where one person in the middle of the stands is not following everyone else's heads. They're just looking directly at somebody.
And that's a great shot. And I think that again, all of this just feels focused. You're watching the movie and you're realizing, oh my god, the three-way dynamic, the back and forth of the editing, the back and forth of the tennis match, the back and forth of the cinematography, the fact that you're looking back and forth on a tennis match, and then you have two people presented in front of you, and your head's looking back and forth between the two of them. It's all harmony. Yeah. Like, this is one of the most harmonious movies I've ever watched. It is. And I think the reason why someone may find the intentionally insane editing and cinematography choices by the end of the film a little unsettling is because I think those are less harmonious, and I think intentionally so. I think they increase the tension of that third act. They make you feel like, oh, what the hell is going on? But I think the movie is just such a flow up to that point, and I know Luca means to do this, but suddenly the camera is a tennis ball, and I'm like, my brain I'm like, what is happening now?
Yeah, I mean, it's the craziest, coolest goddamn shot calling I've seen in modern movies, and I think it feels extremely modern.
Sure, absolutely.
It feels very. I mean, this is a lot of people will use this term derogatorily. I feel, but it feels very TikTok. I think it feels very frenetic, and it feels because we're cutting around a lot. It also feels very anime inspired, as someone jokingly has made a letterboxd list on Twitter of anime and live action with Creed 3, RRR, and now Challengers.
Yeah. 3 of the best movies of the last 3 years.
Exactly, I tend to agree. I mean, I've seen a little bit of Haikyuu, the very famous volleyball manga turned anime, and it's a lot of that. Like, especially with the drawn out final match and then that whole final sequence, it all feels very heightened in very modern ways. Yeah. So, last thing I want to talk about, big thing, fucking Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. two of the most acclaimed composers, some of my favorite composers, made my favorite film score ever, for The Social Network, and god damn did they come out swinging in this one as well. I mean, it is fucking pitch perfect for the movie, in terms of having that driving energy, feeling frenzied, feeling
modern,
feeling quite modern, of course, and I mean, I think the implementation of it is also very interesting.
Sure.
You'll get the needle dropping on the score here for 20 seconds, and then a conversation will start, and then it will drop out, and then we'll go right back to it.
The sound editing in this movie is I think really, really cool, because it's very noticeable. There are moments where the audio is almost blown out a little bit.
Yeah, especially towards
the characters are just talking in totally normal voices, but they're like peaking the mic just a tiny bit just to give this extra sense of like vibrato and pressure.
Like, bring it over the score, which is like kind of pounding in certain moments.
And then there's certain moments, and I think another especially interesting sound choice of this movie is very much bringing in the mix up the grunts while doing either sex or tennis, and every time a ball is hit, there's I would say, comedically loud anime grunt.
I mean, that's
frankly.
That's also just like, I mean, that we're really playing into like the sexual sounding noises that a lot of tennis players make when they're playing. If you've ever watched a tennis match, they make noises like that, and so
but they're emphasized in the mix.
Absolutely, they are. I mean, we are not hiding them for sure. And so that just ties back to my thing of what I'm talking about with this movie, that it all feels very clear and very deliberate in what it's saying about power, sex, tennis, and how really the movie's about all three of them at the same time.
Yeah, and all three of our characters, and the balance is really good, and the direction is there, and the cinematography is great, and the score is great, and one of the best, most compelling screenplays I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
One of the most... I hesitate to say one of the most romantic. It was about to come out like... this is don't base your romance on this.
It is. I just said earlier that it's not really titillating, but in a way it is.
Yeah.
You're very much like, oh boy, oh boy. When they're all sitting in that hotel room, you're like, ooh, they're gonna kiss.
Yeah. So maybe not romantic, but one of the most sexual movies I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the best movies I've seen in a while.
I'm
absolutely blown away by how much I loved all the performances. I mean, I already liked Zendaya. I already liked Mike Faist. I didn't know Josh O'Connor, but now all three of them are... I said this at the beginning. I think there's all their best performances. Yeah. I think that Zendaya has a real shot at lead actors here. I think Mike Faist and Josh O'Connor...
I hope so. I don't know what what else they have on the slate for this year in terms of their award season push. April makes me a little worried. We are 11 months out from the Academy Awards, but I have faith. And I'm putting my faith behind challengers. Yeah. Because
put your faith in Amazon.
Because frankly, I love this movie. I'm gonna give this movie. I don't know if this is the first time I've ever done this on just a straight up movie review instead of a quest review. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10 here.
It's not, because the first movie we reviewed was Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, that's a good point.
I absolutely give that
That's a good point too. But anyway. I mean, I can't foresee a lot of other movies trying like hitting the pinnacle of this, especially as people know we're kind of in a weak movie year. But Challengers is a real high point, especially coming on only like 2 months basically after Dune Part 2.
Yeah. And I'm gonna go just as glowing on this movie. I'm gonna go a 9.4 out of 10. I think this is
great. Yeah,
just such a good movie.
Yeah,
I was just sitting there, I was smiling the whole time, like. This Luca guy's going sicko mode, and I love it.
You're smiling, you're bobbing your head, you're like, oh, what's going to happen next? I mean, it's a great time. Absolutely go see it if you can.
Yep.
See it in IMAX, too. It's in IMAX.
Yeah. We watched it on a big screen.
We did.
I don't really know if the big screen added too much.
Frankly, for the big screen that we go to, which is basically like an IMAX ripoff kind of thing, I basically just go for the sound. The sound in that theater is much better than all the regular theaters that we have here. So I mean, and sound is very important to this. But yeah, see it on the big screen. You know, treat yourself.
See it on the silver screen.
Yeah.